The upcoming transit of Ketu into Purva Falguni Nakshatra from July 20th, 2025 to March 29th, 2026, marks a spiritually charged and karmically potent phase in the zodiac, set within the fiery domain of Leo, and governed by the sensual and aesthetic energy of Venus. This transit introduces a powerful paradox, where the planet of detachment and moksha journeys through one of the most pleasure-seeking and indulgent nakshatras of the zodiac. This creates a dynamic where worldly delights are questioned, superficial expressions are stripped away, and individuals are invited to explore the deeper meaning behind joy, love, romance, and creativity. Purva Falguni Nakshatra, spanning from 13 degrees 20 minutes to 26 degrees 40 minutes in Leo, is rich in themes of pleasure, luxury, creativity, sensuality, and enjoyment of life. It is associated with the deity Budga, one of the 12 Adityas, known as the god of enjoyment, prosperity, and marriage contracts. This nakshatra is symbolized by the front legs of a bed or a swinging hammock, both of which speak to relaxation, comfort, and the pleasures of life after intense work or leadership efforts. It is not just about sleep or laziness, but a time of consciously indulging in beauty, art, intimacy, and harmony. As Ketu enters this nakshatra, the dynamics change drastically. Ketu is a shadow planet that stands for detachment, spiritual growth, mysticism, non-materialism, and past life karmas. It does not allow the soul to remain attached to worldly indulgences and instead nudges the native toward inner evolution, often through disillusionment, confusion, and subtle forms of emotional detachment. Ketu has no head, it lacks desire and logic, and it brings to life situations where one must let go of craving, even in areas that were once fulfilling. In the context of Purva Falguni, Ketu's presence creates an energetic friction. The nakshatra pushes for indulgence, romanticism, social enjoyment, and creative self-expression, while Ketu begins to slowly strip the meaning out of these experiences, leading individuals to ask deeper questions. This can be a time of questioning relationships, walking away from superficial romantic entanglements, or even feeling a mysterious emotional distance within committed partnerships. Because Purva Falguni governs themes of intimacy, relationships, and even procreation, Ketu here can bring a sense of karmic separation, both physical and psychological. For many, relationships may undergo testing, cooling off, or a profound transformation. Creatively, this is a profound period. Purva Falguni is deeply connected to the arts, beauty, and self-expression. While Ketu may cause initial disinterest or creative blocks, over time it can also allow individuals to refine their creative output in a way that aligns with spiritual or emotional truth. For artists, musicians, designers, and performers, this transit can bring a silent metamorphosis, where flash and show are replaced with soul and substance. The spiritual side of creativity may flourish, particularly for those working in healing arts, mysticism, intuitive design, or abstract forms of self-expression. Ketu in this nakshatra encourages minimalism, depth, and subtlety, often steering people away from glamour and excess. Financially, Purva Falguni is connected to luxury and wealth, as well as speculative income like stock markets, entertainment industry revenues, or luxury goods and services. With Ketu transiting here, there can be a disinterest or detachment from wealth, or sudden financial shifts, especially if one's financial pursuits are not aligned with inner values. Investments may yield unexpected results, and superficial materialism might start to lose its charm. This can lead some individuals to downsize, simplify, or withdraw from competitive material pursuits altogether, especially if they feel exhausted by the chase for status or luxury. This nakshatra is also symbolic of marriage contracts, and Ketu's influence can result in the reevaluation of commitments, both legal and emotional. People may feel dissatisfied in partnerships, especially those formed for material comfort, beauty, or social standing. Illusions within love and pleasure are likely to be shattered, making way for more authentic emotional realizations. It's not uncommon for Ketu transits to bring past life karmic relationships back into consciousness, or to end existing ones that have served their purpose. There may be a strange push-pull between longing and distance, especially in romantic situations. The placement of the Sun and Venus in individual charts will play a major role during this transit. Since Leo is ruled by the Sun, and Purva Falguni by Venus, both planets act as key anchors to ground Ketu's erratic and headless energy. A strong Sun can lend confidence, direction, and clarity of ego amidst the confusion brought on by Ketu. A well-placed Venus, meanwhile, can soften Ketu's harsh detachment and bring spiritual beauty into relationships and art. Afflicted or weak placements of these planets may lead to identity crises, romantic disillusionment, or a loss of motivation in areas once considered important. At a collective level, this transit could highlight themes around the entertainment industry, social dynamics, and romantic scandals. Prominent figures may withdraw from the spotlight, artistic communities may become more introspective or experimental, and public discourse may question the sustainability of lavish lifestyles. There can also be a societal reckoning around artificial love, shallow pleasures, and the illusion of fame. To assess the impact of this transit, it's important to consider both your ascendant and moon signs. The ascendant sign offers insights into the timing and nature of life events, while the moon sign reflects how you'll emotionally respond to these changes. Also, consider the position of your current Mahadasha Lord in your birth chart, as it can reveal how these transits will influence the ongoing themes of your current dasha period. Keep in mind that the effects of this transit will vary from person to person. If you are currently undergoing a Ketu dasha, this transit will have a pronounced impact. The placement of your natal Ketu, and its interaction with transiting Ketu, Venus, and the Sun, is particularly significant. Similarly, those in a Sun and Venus dasha periods will also experience notable effects. By analyzing your Vedic birth chart, you can gain deeper insights into how this transit might influence your life. If you're unsure about your planetary placements, simply click the link below to generate your personalized Vedic birth chart. Now, to understand how this transit may affect you based on your zodiac sign and the houses it influences, let's explore the details. Aries individuals step into a period of intense introspection, emotional detachment, and creative transformation, especially in areas governed by the 5th house, as Ketu begins its transit through Purva Phalguni Nakshatra in Leo. The 5th house in astrology is associated with creativity, romance, children, education, speculative ventures, spiritual practices, past life merits, and joy. With Ketu, an enigmatic, headless shadow planet known for its spiritual tendencies and detachment, moving through this emotionally charged and creative sector of your chart, the months ahead may bring both confusion and illumination. For Aries, a sign ruled by action-driven Mars, the 5th house falls in Leo, a fiery and expressive sign ruled by the Sun. The natural dynamism and intensity of Aries find a sense of flair and self-expression in Leo's domain. With Ketu transiting here, that expression might begin to feel muted, distant, or inwardly directed. You might experience a sense of disconnect from the joy you typically derive from creative projects, romantic encounters, or the pleasure of engaging in childlike pursuits. This is not a punishment from the cosmos, but rather a karmic invitation to seek depth instead of drama, meaning instead of mirage. The nakshatra of Purva Phalguni, ruled by Venus, is known for its association with sensuality, luxury, artistic beauty, and romantic pleasures. It is a nakshatra that relishes in enjoyment, intimacy, and indulgence. Yet, when Ketu transits this Venus-ruled nakshatra, especially in the 5th house of love and joy, it causes a strange combination. There may be a distancing from romantic love, or a cooling off in passion. You may still be involved with someone, but find it difficult to connect deeply or emotionally. Relationships could begin to feel superficial or emotionally taxing, especially if they were rooted in ego, external validation, or pleasure seeking. You may feel an invisible wall in matters of the heart, present, but not connected. For Aries individuals, romance during this transit could become a double-edged sword. On one hand, there's a yearning for passion, on the other, there's a profound emotional withdrawal. You may desire love, but not wish to fully surrender to it. Or you may encounter romantic partners who are emotionally unavailable or spiritually misaligned with your path. Ketu has a way of attracting relationships that reflect unresolved karmas, especially from past lives. It's common under such transits to meet someone who feels familiar but brings emotional confusion, detachment, or even heartbreak. These experiences, though emotionally heavy, are part of a spiritual detox meant to sever unhealthy romantic patterns. The 5th house also governs children and progeny, and with Ketu's influence here, those with children may experience emotional distancing or misunderstandings with them. You may feel confused about how to guide or connect with your child, or simply feel like you are unable to meet them emotionally. For those trying to conceive, this transit can bring unexpected delays, questioning, or detachment from the desire to become a parent, not out of physical inability, but due to a karmic shift in priorities. In some cases, it may also open the door to adoption, or mentoring roles, where the soul is still expressing its nurturing capacity, just through less conventional means. Ketu's 5th house placement for Aries also affects creative intelligence and speculative ventures. You may find that the joy you once derived from creating, be it writing, art, music, or performance, suddenly feels flat. Creative blocks are common under this transit, not due to lack of talent, but due to a lack of emotional engagement with your craft. This is an ideal time to revisit your creative process and ask, what am I creating, and why? If your creativity has been driven by ego, social validation, or financial gain, Ketu will now slowly sever those motives and push you toward art for the soul's sake. You may be called to explore esoteric, symbolic, or deeply personal forms of expression, even if they're not commercially successful. In speculative affairs such as gambling, stock trading, or betting, this is not a favorable period for taking risks. The fifth house rules luck and speculation, but Ketu clouds judgment, creating illusions or miscalculations. What may seem like a lucky opportunity could turn out to be a karmic lesson in disguise. Aries individuals would do well to stay away from get-rich-quick schemes, risky investments, or impulsive business decisions during this transit. Instead, focus on long-term creativity and building things of lasting value, even if the rewards aren't immediate. The fifth house also governs past life karma. This is a period when your past life merits may surface as intuitive gifts, wisdom, or sudden spiritual breakthroughs. You may experience déjà vu, dreams of distant lifetimes, or unexplainable insight into esoteric matters. It's an excellent time for studying astrology. Solitude and introspection will become increasingly necessary. Now, Ketu being the co-ruler of your 8th house with Mars links this transit to deep transformation, psychological rebirth, and karmic purging. This 5th to 8th house connection creates a loop between emotional expression and internal upheaval. In plain terms, the people and passions that once lit up your life may now become the very catalyst for your inner transformation. If you've been escaping transformation by hiding in romantic fantasies or creative distractions, Ketu will now strip those illusions. This is a soul recalibration, not a loss. You are being prepared to evolve emotionally, spiritually, and creatively. The condition of Venus, the nakshatra lord of Purva Falguni, influences this transit's outcome. A well-placed Venus in birth chart and in transit can help you find artistic beauty and meaning in detachment, and reawaken your romantic life with higher awareness. A weak Venus may lead to cravings, loss of pleasure, or emotional dissatisfaction, especially in love and creative pursuits. This is your opportunity to cleanse and reset your value system, to understand what true love and beauty mean to your soul. By the end of this transit in March 2026, many Aries individuals may find themselves emotionally lighter, more self-aware, and creatively realigned. The process may include the loss of a relationship, the decline of a creative project, or the falling away of personal indulgences, but through that detachment, you will reconnect with a deeper, purer expression of joy. This is not about ending pleasure. It is about discovering divine joy that exists beyond ego, drama, and temporary highs. Overall, Ketu's transit will test what brings you happiness, and strip away anything that doesn't align with your soul's truth. It's a time to embrace spiritual creativity, detach from unhealthy attachments in love, and trust that what seems like emotional withdrawal is in fact a recalibration of your karmic path. True fulfillment may not look glamorous during this transit, but it will feel enduring. Let go of what dims your light, and you'll discover what it truly means to shine from within. Taurus individuals are entering a deeply karmic and introspective phase affecting their world, emotional grounding, and home life, as Ketu begins its transit through Purva Falguni Nakshatra. The 4th house, where this transit takes place, is the foundational house of peace, property, comfort, emotional security, domestic life, vehicles, mother, roots, and homeland. This transit is especially significant because Ketu is moving through Leo, a sign governed by the sun, while the nakshatra itself is ruled by Venus, your sign lord. This makes the transit doubly influential. Venus's rulership over both your entire personality and the nakshatra signifies that this phase will test and reorient your emotional needs, lifestyle comforts, and relationships at a deep subconscious level. It may not manifest through dramatic outer changes at first, but will certainly initiate profound transformations. Ketu in the 4th house in Leo can give a sense of disconnection from the things that traditionally offer emotional nourishment. Your home might feel less like a sanctuary and more like a place where restlessness builds. Despite being surrounded by family or luxury, you may feel detached, even alienated. This is not because something is wrong externally, but because Ketu's function is to strip away superficial attachments and force a more soul-aligned form of contentment. With Ketu in Purva Falguni, the illusion of material satisfaction is questioned, especially in areas where one has become too indulgent, dependent, or possessive. It's like being in a lavish room and suddenly realizing the beauty feels hollow because your heart is no longer in it. This emotional detachment may extend to matters related to your mother or maternal lineage. The 4th house is strongly connected to the mother, and Ketu's transit here can bring situations where you feel emotionally distant from your mother figure, either due to physical separation, differences in perspectives, or karmic disconnection. It may also reflect a period where unresolved ancestral patterns or inherited emotional habits resurface, pushing you toward healing and closure. If your relationship with your mother has been complicated, this transit can stir up old issues, but also opens space for detachment and forgiveness. The Purva Falguni Nakshatra, being Venusian in nature, usually emphasizes comfort, pleasure, and relaxation. But Ketu is not here to relax. It wants to meditate, detach, and look inward. As a result, you may become disinterested in activities you once found pleasurable. Decorating your home, lounging in comfort, or enjoying domestic pleasures. There may be a subtle internal urge to simplify, downsize, or even move away from familiar surroundings. The idea of home might shift from a physical space to a more spiritual or mental idea of peace. Some Taurus individuals may suddenly feel an urge to move to a more isolated or spiritually significant place, somewhere that supports solitude and internal work. Real estate or property matters might also undergo unexpected shifts. Ketu doesn't necessarily deny material gains, but it complicates them or brings them through unusual, karmically charged circumstances. You may feel uncertain about your living situation, or circumstances might arise that force you to reevaluate whether you truly belong where you are. If you've been overly attached to your house, city, or comfort zone, Ketu may disrupt this attachment so that you're nudged toward deeper emotional independence. For some, this may come through sudden changes related to housing, selling property, unexpected repairs, or having to live away from home due to external demands. Ketu's co-rulership of your 7th house, alongside Mars, brings a subtle but significant interplay between your domestic life and your partnerships. The 4th house is the emotional bedrock of your life, while the 7th governs committed relationships and public engagements. With this connection, there may be karmic consequences of your past partnerships reflecting in your home or family life. If you are married or in a long-term partnership, this may be a phase where emotional distance grows between you and your spouse, especially around domestic concerns or decisions related to home and lifestyle. You might feel unsupported or misunderstood at home, or your partner might feel like a stranger emotionally, even if physically present. There may also be karmic debts being paid off through relationship dynamics in the household. Ketu often brings in people from past lives to help us work through unresolved issues. During this transit, you may encounter people, perhaps tenants, guests, or family members, whose presence triggers emotional turbulence or profound shifts. Alternatively, you may become hyper-aware of how much energy you've poured into domestic matters to gain validation, and now that sense of security begins to slip away, teaching you that peace must arise internally. From a psychological perspective, this transit can unearth hidden emotional patterns, especially those rooted in early childhood, your family environment, or ancestral conditioning. You may become aware of emotional blockages or old grief that you've buried under routines or comfort. These may not surface all at once, but in fleeting memories, dreams, or moments of introspection. Ketu in this position acts as an emotional excavator, peeling away your protective emotional layers to reveal what's underneath, often vulnerability, but also deep wisdom. On the spiritual front, this transit has immense potential for growth. The 4th house governs the heart space, and Ketu here can push you toward heart-centered awareness through meditation, spiritual practice, or time spent alone. You may be less inclined to seek external validation from family or home-related status symbols and more focused on building a tranquil sanctuary. Purva Falguni's creative and artistic qualities may also manifest through solitary artistic pursuits. Painting, writing, music, or spiritual journaling may offer catharsis during this time. The placement of Venus in your chart will play a major role in how this transit unfolds. As both the nakshatra lord and your sign ruler, Venus's dignity will determine whether Ketu in Purva Falguni brings graceful withdrawal or chaotic confusion. A strong Venus can help you cultivate refined simplicity, a calm, minimalist, yet beautiful lifestyle that nourishes the soul. A weak or afflicted Venus may tempt you into escapism or indulgent patterns, only for you to feel let down by them repeatedly. For students, especially those studying from home or involved in home-based learning, this transit can create confusion, restlessness, or difficulty in focusing. If you are trying to establish a routine at home, be it for work, academics, or spiritual practice, Ketu's influence may initially feel disruptive. But if you are able to surrender to a less rigid, more intuitive rhythm, you may discover that inspiration flows more freely when you release the need for constant control or structure. Overall, Ketu's transit through Purva Falguni in your 4th house is not about the destruction of comfort, but about the dismantling of illusions tied to security. It invites you to find peace that is not dependent on luxury, relationships, or a physical home. This transit asks you to redefine what comfort means, not as excess, not as dependency, but as presence, simplicity, and inner alignment. Gemini individuals are set to experience a shift in the energy related to the 3rd house, the domain of self-effort, communication, courage, younger siblings, short journeys, creativity, and skills development. as Ketu begins its transit through Purva Falguni Nakshatra in the sign of Leo. This house is ruled in your chart by Leo, a fiery and expressive sign governed by the sun, and the nakshatra it now occupies, Purva Falguni, is ruled by Venus, symbolizing luxury, sensuality, pleasure, and creative romance. With Ketu, a spiritual, non-materialistic, and detaching planet, moving through this combination, the result is a deeply karmic unraveling of your relationship with self-expression, courage, and connectivity. Gemini, ruled by Mercury, is an air sign that thrives on adaptability, communication, and curiosity. Its third house, Leo, is normally a stage where a Gemini native's boldness in communication and their expressive, confident nature find fertile ground. But as Ketu moves through this house and especially this particular nakshatra, you may begin to feel withdrawn from these very qualities. Your usual ease with conversation, wit, and persuasive ability might start to feel dull or uninspired. You may speak less, feel more reclusive, or find that others simply aren't responding to your words with the same enthusiasm as before. A quiet emotional distancing begins to unfold, especially with younger siblings or those you communicate with frequently. Ketu in the third house tends to bring a sense of futility around the act of communication. You might feel like your words no longer have the power they once had. Conversations may seem meaningless or forced. This can manifest as avoiding social media, losing interest in writing or speaking projects, or feeling emotionally absent during conversations. For someone as mentally active as a Gemini native, this internal shift can be disorienting. Yet, it is meant to strip away superficial forms of expression, compelling you to find deeper, more spiritually aligned ways to use your voice. Purva Falguni Nakshatra, where Ketu is currently transiting, is closely linked to pleasure, romance, leisure, and creative indulgence. It loves to express, to be seen, and to enjoy. But Ketu doesn't allow the ego to flourish in this domain. Instead, it turns the soul inward, away from indulgent self-expression and toward disciplined silence or conscious restraint. As a result, your creative energies may feel suppressed, or they may shift from outward performance to inward exploration, such as journaling, writing, or sketching. What once excited you creatively might now feel dull or hollow unless it carries a deeper emotional or spiritual resonance. The third house also governs effort and willpower. With Ketu here, you may experience sudden laziness or lack of motivation towards self-initiated projects. What you previously pursued with drive and clarity may now seem meaningless or burdensome. This is not necessarily a sign of failure. It is, instead, a spiritual pause. Ketu is trying to redirect your energy from constant doing to intentional being. It wants you to question the why behind your actions, not just the how. This is also a transit that may redefine your relationship with your younger siblings or peers, if you have any. You may experience a certain emotional detachment, misunderstanding, or karmic distance with them. Old patterns may resurface, or you may find that the bond, while intact externally, is no longer emotionally charged in the same way. Ketu often brings subtle psychic separation. You are there, but not fully engaged. If there are unresolved past life karmas involving siblings or communication, this is the time they may begin to unravel. Healing may come from nonverbal understanding, silence, or intuitive empathy, rather than talking it out in traditional ways. With the sun ruling Leo and therefore dispositing Ketu, the placement and dignity of the sun in your natal chart will significantly influence how you experience this detachment. A strong, well-placed sun may allow you to channel this period into self-reflection, artistic transformation, or spiritual communication, helping you maintain your confidence even as your external voice quiets down. But a weakened or afflicted sun may lead to identity confusion, loss of self-assurance, and a fading desire to assert yourself in the world. You may doubt the worth of your efforts, question your skills, or feel ignored by those around you. Venus, as the ruler of Purva Falguni, has its own role to play. The placement of Venus in your natal chart will reveal how gracefully you handle the withdrawal from pleasure-oriented communication. A strong Venus may support a shift into poetic or subtle forms of expression, while a weak or challenged Venus can lead to frustration around feeling unappreciated or artistically blocked. Either way, the point of this transit is to refine your creative self-expression into something more meaningful and less performative. For Gemini, Ketu also co-rules the 6th house along with Mars. This creates a connection between your efforts, 3rd house, and your karmic challenges, 6th house. This is an invitation to review how much effort you're putting into conflicts, routines, health, and work, and whether that effort is actually productive or simply draining. This combination may lead you to walk away from petty rivalries, abandon toxic productivity cycles, or even stop obsessing over self-improvement. In place of that compulsive drive, you might seek quiet strength, subtle resilience, and a rhythm of life that serves your spirit more than your schedule. The 3rd house also governs short travels, especially those taken out of curiosity or for leisure. With Ketu's involvement, you may either withdraw from travel plans or find your journeys to be more insightful than entertaining. A road trip that was meant to be fun could unexpectedly turn into a silent retreat in nature. Encounters during such travels may feel fated, karmic, or strangely symbolic. Even accidents or delays on these trips, if they happen, may carry messages from the universe. This is a period of symbolic movement rather than physical escape. On a subtler level, Ketu in the third house may also create internal resistance to learning new skills or engaging in traditional forms of education. You may feel disillusioned with the idea of skill mastery if it lacks purpose. Anything that enhances communication with your higher self will flourish, even if conventional learning or coursework loses its charm. Throughout this transit, which lasts until March 29, 2026, you may increasingly realize that not all effort is equal, and not all speech is necessary. You are being pulled into a quieter, more mindful form of living. It's possible you may drift from social platforms, take fewer calls, and choose internal dialogues over external ones. But in doing so, you're beginning to align your actions with authenticity. It's not about doing more, it's about doing less, but with meaning. You may walk away from unfulfilling projects, let go of relationships based on surface-level communication, and find joy in quiet confidence rather than noisy affirmation. Cancer individuals are invited into a deeply transformative period that affects their relationship with wealth, speech, food, family, and core values, as Ketu begins its transit through Purva Falguni Nakshatra. The second house, where Ketu now resides, governs not just money and material assets but also inherited belief systems, lineage, possessions, and how we speak and nourish ourselves, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Ketu, being a planet of detachment and mysticism, introduces an element of distance, introspection, and karmic unraveling in these domains. With the nakshatra ruled by Venus, and the sign Leo, governed by the Sun, this transit initiates a tension between indulgence and renunciation, between material beauty and spiritual simplicity. The second house is typically a place of comfort, representing the sustenance we receive from family, the accumulation of wealth, and the voice we use to influence or soothe. But with Ketu entering this space, particularly through the lens of Purva Falguni, the qualities associated with luxury, sensuality, and emotional satisfaction begin to undergo a subtle erosion. The Venusian energy of the nakshatra longs for beauty, pleasure, and a sense of abundance. But Ketu, the headless, south node of moon, seeks release from these very ties. The result can be a confusing emotional state, wanting richness and security, yet finding them unsatisfying or illusory. One of the most prominent effects of this transit will likely be felt in your relationship with money. Cancer individuals may begin to reassess their priorities around income, possessions, and financial goals. Ketu here does not necessarily cause financial loss, but it can generate a sense of emotional distance from wealth. You might earn well yet feel empty. You might accumulate resources but lose interest in them, or you may develop a growing discomfort with materialism altogether. You may begin to question, why am I chasing this? What does this money represent? What am I truly trying to secure with it? It's not uncommon under such a transit to start shifting spending habits, either spending too freely due to carelessness or completely withdrawing from indulgences that once brought joy. If your financial habits have been rooted in emotional comfort or ego identity, Ketu may shake those foundations. You may begin detaching from previously held ideas of success, status, or family expectations around wealth. For some, this could be a time of voluntary minimalism, giving up luxury, selling off unnecessary assets, or finding joy in simplicity. The second house also governs family lineage and heritage, and with Ketu here, unresolved karmic threads related to your family's past may come to the forefront. You may feel a deep, perhaps inexplicable sense of separation or alienation from your roots. The presence of Ketu can often act like a veil. It creates fog in areas where once there was clarity. You may begin to emotionally withdraw from your family or find it difficult to connect with their values. Alternatively, family dynamics may become strained, especially around issues of inheritance, financial support, or unspoken generational wounds. This is a time when ancestral patterns, particularly related to emotional repression, financial scarcity or overindulgence, and self-worth, may reveal themselves through subtle experiences. Speech is another key area affected during this transit. The second house governs not only what we say but also the tone, timing, and intent behind our words. With Ketu here, you may find yourself choosing silence more often, or experiencing moments where your voice is misheard, misunderstood, or simply not received the way you intended. You may also notice a shift in your language, perhaps becoming more philosophical, abstract, or introspective. For those who work with their voice, singers, teachers, public speakers, this could be a period of introspective refinement, or in some cases, temporary creative blocks that force you to reconfigure your voice from a more authentic place. Interestingly, Ketu co-rules your 5th house, with Mars, which connects this transit to your past life talents, creative expressions, and romantic memories. This adds a layer of karmic intensity to the 2nd house transit. You may begin to uncover long-lost skills, especially related to speech, finance, or artistic expression, perhaps singing, storytelling, or poetry. These gifts could emerge spontaneously, almost as if retrieved from another lifetime. There could also be feelings of incompletion or disappointment tied to them. It may feel as though you're trying to express something beautiful, but the words fall short, or that your creativity isn't meeting the worldly success you once desired. This emotional tug is Ketu's lesson, to create not for validation, but from spiritual impulse. Food and eating habits, another theme of the 2nd house, may also shift dramatically. Ketu can bring unusual cravings or sudden aversions. Some Cancer individuals may begin to distance themselves from previously enjoyed foods, develop dietary sensitivities, or lose interest in food altogether. Fasting, or different approaches to nourishment may gain appeal during this phase. The Venus-Ketu conflict in Purva Falguni can especially impact those who use food as a source of comfort. If eating has been an emotional or escapist behavior, this transit may expose the imbalance and nudge you toward purification, not just of body, but of intention. The placement of Venus in your natal chart plays an important role in how this experience unfolds. Venus rules Purva Falguni and governs desire, pleasure, and wealth, all qualities now under Ketu's detaching influence. If Venus is strong and well-placed, this transit may lead to graceful letting go, soulful minimalism, and a refined aesthetic that doesn't depend on luxury. But if Venus is afflicted, you may experience dissatisfaction, confusion in financial matters, or strained family relationships rooted in unfulfilled emotional needs. This period also carries an undercurrent of spiritual awakening around abundance. You may begin to recognize that wealth is not merely about possessions but about how safe, connected, and whole you feel within. The Venusian theme of pleasure, refracted through Ketu's mist, asks whether your sources of joy truly serve your soul. The karmic nature of Ketu often brings events that seem fated, unexpected, or beyond rational control. You may come across financial opportunities that dissolve as quickly as they appear, or inherit something from your family that carries strange emotional weight. At other times, you may lose something valuable, only to realize its true worth wasn't monetary. These are not accidents. They are symbolic initiations into a deeper understanding of detachment and inner peace. By the end of this transit, you may emerge with a very different sense of what security, family, and success mean to you. You'll likely find that real sustenance comes not from accumulation but from alignment, where your speech flows from truth, your wealth reflects simplicity, and your family connections are based on soul recognition, not duty or expectation. This is the gift Ketu offers, not through comfort, but through clarity. For Leo, the transit of Ketu into Purva Falguni Nakshatra marks a deeply introspective and karmically charged chapter of self-rediscovery. As Ketu, the headless shadow planet, enters your 1st house of self, identity, body, and life path, a significant shift in your self-perception begins to unfold. The 1st house is the most personal house in the chart. It governs not only your physical presence and personality, but also how others perceive you. When Ketu transits this house, especially in the vibrant, luxury-loving, and creative Purva Falguni Nakshatra, it can create a peculiar conflict between outward persona and inward emptiness. Ruled by Venus, and hosted in Leo, a sign governed by the Sun, this nakshatra is associated with confidence, elegance, indulgence, and pleasure. But Ketu's influence strips these qualities bare and challenges your attachment to identity, appearance, and validation. Leo individuals are naturally radiant, proud, and strong in presence. There is usually a magnetic energy about them that attracts attention. Ruled by the Sun, they are often driven by a need to shine, to be recognized, and to feel central in their world. But as Ketu enters the very domain of their ego and persona, it begins a slow unraveling of these very traits. You may start feeling a subtle sense of detachment from who you thought you were. People may begin treating you differently, or you may stop craving the applause and admiration you once sought. You might look in the mirror and feel disconnected from your reflection, not in a physical way, but in a spiritual one. This sensation of identity blurring is not a loss, it's a doorway. Ketu's task here is to help you dissolve the ego-based layers of self and reconnect with a deeper, more timeless version of who you are. One of the most prominent themes during this period is disillusionment with image and personality. As Purva Falguni thrives on being seen, appreciated, and admired for its charm, beauty, and creative flair, the presence of Ketu can begin to quietly dismantle your reliance on such external validations. You may lose interest in how you present yourself, becoming more casual, minimalistic, or indifferent to personal grooming and fashion. This doesn't mean you're losing your style. Rather, it's an inward redirection, a reevaluation of how much your appearance has defined your identity. You may begin craving authenticity, depth, and meaning over flamboyance, attention, or glamour. Physically, the first house also governs the body. Ketu here can make you less connected to your physical form. There could be a decrease in energy, or a desire to retreat from the spotlight. In some cases, you may undergo health fluctuations, usually psychosomatic in nature, manifesting as symptoms without medical explanations. This is especially true if there's repressed emotional energy, or an unresolved inner conflict surfacing from the subconscious. It's not a time to ignore your health, but rather, to explore holistic and subtle forms of healing. Traditional remedies may feel inadequate, and your body might respond better to methods that address the mind and soul together. As Ketu co-rules your fourth house with Mars, this transit also subtly intertwines matters of home, emotional foundation, and inner peace with your evolving sense of self. You may find yourself reflecting more on your childhood, your emotional conditioning, or your family history, questioning how much of your personality has been shaped by your upbringing and how much of it is genuinely you. For some, there may be physical distance from the home or changes in living arrangements that trigger deeper introspection. For others, emotional detachment from parental figures or ancestral values may arise, not out of rebellion, but from a soul-driven need to reorient your identity towards something more individually meaningful. Relationships during this period may also reflect the internal shift you're undergoing. As your personality changes and your outer expression becomes more reserved or contemplative, others may misread this as aloofness or withdrawal. You may even find that the type of people you attract begins to change. The flamboyant, dramatic, or status-driven connections that once felt natural may start to feel draining or irrelevant. You may be drawn more towards spiritually aligned, intellectually deep, or quietly supportive individuals. This is part of your spiritual shedding, releasing what no longer mirrors your essence. Because Purva Falguni is a nakshatra tied to romance, luxury, sensuality, and artistic expression, its themes still pulse in the background. Ketu doesn't allow for indulgence unless it serves spiritual purpose. You may experience disinterest in romantic pursuits or even emotional withdrawal from your partner. This doesn't necessarily signify separation, but it does highlight a need to understand love beyond pleasure or validation. If you're single, it's possible that you may feel inexplicably content being alone. Or if you do enter a relationship, it may be karmic in nature, meant more for teaching than for traditional fulfillment. Creatively, this is an unusual time. On one hand, Purva Falguni fuels the urge to create beauty, through art, performance, or self-expression. On the other hand, Ketu often removes motivation if the creative work is driven by ego or external goals. So if you're an artist, performer, or someone who thrives on attention, you may experience a temporary creative void or burnout. But if you surrender to a deeper, more intuitive process, where creativity becomes meditative or devotional, Ketu can help you produce profoundly unique, spiritually infused work. The roles of Venus and the Sun in your birth chart become important during this transit. Venus, being the ruler of Purva Falguni, governs pleasure, aesthetics, love, and values. If Venus is well placed in your chart, Ketu's presence may feel less disruptive, allowing you to retain some joy and ease even as you move inward. But if Venus is afflicted, your sense of beauty, comfort, or self-worth may fluctuate, and you may feel emotionally untethered. Similarly, the Sun, your chart ruler and the Lord of Leo, represents your core identity. If your natal Sun is strong, you may gracefully evolve through this shedding process and emerge more authentic, self-assured, and spiritually radiant. If the Sun is weak or afflicted, you may wrestle with ego wounds, feelings of invisibility, or a lack of clarity about your direction. The first house becomes the stage for your soul to explore existence without the noise of identity or ego. Meditation, retreat, fasting, or periods of isolation can be especially nourishing. This is a rare opportunity to disconnect from societal expectations, strip away labels, and ask yourself, without distractions, who am I beneath it all? You may notice an intuitive rise, psychic flashes, or heightened perception during this transit. Ketu sharpens non-logical awareness and often brings a deeper connection to dreams, signs, and symbolic language. These perceptions aren't to be feared. Rather, they're guiding lights pulling you away from outer showmanship and toward inner revelation. As Ketu moves through Purva Falguni in your first house, your sense of self will not be destroyed, but reborn, refined, distilled, and stripped of artifice. The Leo ego that once sought stage lights may now seek stillness. If you lean into this process with courage and humility, by the end of this transit, you may find yourself standing as a soul fully aware of its own radiance, and powerful. For Virgo, the transit of Ketu through Purva Falguni Nakshatra, marks a shift as the headless shadow planet moves through your 12th house, the domain of spiritual liberation, isolation, sleep, losses, foreign lands, the subconscious, and transcendence. This is one of the most ethereal, mysterious, and karmically significant zones in the birth chart. Here, the presence of Ketu becomes deeply potent, for the 12th house naturally aligns with Ketu's otherworldly nature. Yet this time, Ketu expresses itself through the passionate, indulgent, and pleasure-seeking Purva Falguni Nakshatra, which is ruled by Venus and resides in the Leo sign governed by the Sun. This rare juxtaposition brings forth a spiritual tug-of-war between the sensuality and comfort Purva Falguni desires and the disinterest and detachment that Ketu inherently represents. The 12th house is already known for themes of seclusion, surrender, and subtle realities. When Ketu, whose core function is to dissolve and cut away, is placed here, the process intensifies. You may begin to feel a growing disconnection from the outer world. Activities that once felt necessary or even exciting may start to seem hollow. You may prefer being alone, or retreat into silence more than usual. Others might see this as avoidance or aloofness, but on a soul level, you're being pulled into a different frequency, one that demands solitude, stillness, and surrender. For Virgo individuals who are typically logical, task-oriented, and structured, this can be a jarring experience, as it strips away your usual mental clarity and replaces it with intangible intuitions and abstract emotions that cannot be quantified or analyzed. The 12th house also governs sleep and dreams, and during this period, your subconscious mind may become more active than ever. Vivid, symbolic, or prophetic dreams may become frequent. This can serve as a deep cleansing process where your karmic backlog is being filtered through sleep. Some Virgo individuals may experience disturbances in sleep, either insomnia or oversleeping, as your inner world adjusts to the shifting energetic state. This transit may also spark a heightened spiritual awareness. You may feel called toward meditation, mysticism, healing, or exploration of the occult. Ketu in the 12th house doesn't demand traditional forms of devotion. It simply dissolves the barriers that keep you attached to the mundane. And as those dissolve, what's left is the question: who am I without identity, without structure, without the material world? The presence of Purva Falguni Nakshatra, known for its link to romance, indulgence, and sensuality, makes this inner journey even more complex. You may feel a desire to withdraw from relationships or pleasures, even though a part of you still longs for connection. There's a paradox: the desire for union and the urge to retreat from it. The 12th house also governs loss, but not always in a literal or tragic sense. Loss here often refers to voluntary letting go, release, or surrender of what no longer serves the soul's growth. During this period, you may feel compelled to give up things that once defined your identity: luxuries, relationships, certain habits, or even long-held desires. This is especially likely if those aspects of life were rooted in ego gratification. Ketu is not punitive, but purificatory. It strips away illusion. So, if your self-worth has been dependent on external validation, possessions, or sensual pleasures, Ketu will challenge those attachments and gently nudge you toward liberation. Foreign travel and dealings with overseas matters also fall under the 12th house. You may be drawn to foreign lands, not for adventure, but for escape, healing, or retreat. Long-distance journeys undertaken during this time may not bring material gain, but spiritual insights. Some Virgo individuals may also relocate temporarily for spiritual reasons, to a retreat center or a solitary residence. Others might feel a yearning to connect with people or traditions from distant cultures, especially those that offer alternative healing or spiritual paths. Because Ketu tends to blur and obscure, it's important to be cautious with legal matters or paperwork related to foreign transactions. Mistakes or hidden complications are possible, especially if you act impulsively. Interestingly, Ketu co-rules your 3rd house along with Mars, connecting this 12th house transit to themes of communication, effort, and courage. This means that some of the deepest transformations occurring in your unconscious mind may reflect in how you speak or write. You may experience a temporary disinterest in social interactions or reduce your online presence. If channeled consciously, this can be a powerful time for writing, poetry, journaling, or channeling insights through nonlinear forms of communication. The connection between the 3rd and 12th houses also indicates that you may receive messages from your past. Past life talents, especially artistic, musical, or healing abilities, may resurface through inexplicable inspiration. Relationships, especially romantic ones, may undergo an unusual phase. The Purva Falguni influence still holds a longing for intimacy, but Ketu in the 12th house tends to generate detachment, or spiritual longing. You may experience emotional distance from your partner, or feel misunderstood in matters of affection. If your relationship is built on superficial or sensual indulgences, this phase might expose its fragility. If it's built on deeper spiritual connection, It may evolve into something more transcendent. For singles, this transit often brings fated or karmic encounters. People who feel familiar but are here to teach you or activate growth, not necessarily to stay long-term. The influence of Venus, the nakshatra ruler, becomes particularly significant. Venus represents love, beauty, art, pleasure, and desire, all of which are being filtered through the dissolving lens of Ketu. If Venus is well placed in your natal chart, this transit may enhance your spiritual aesthetic sense. You may create art that soothes the soul or find deep peace and simplicity. If Venus is afflicted, you may struggle with dissatisfaction or loneliness, especially if you're still seeking fulfillment through external affection or luxury. Either way, you are learning to experience beauty without attachment, love without ownership, and pleasure without dependence. The Sun, ruler of Leo, also plays a defining role. Since Leo is the 12th sign from Virgo, this is a karmic territory linked to your ego dissolution. The Sun symbolizes the ego, identity, and life purpose. Ketu's transit here dismantles the parts of your ego that are based on control, perfectionism, or external superiority. This can lead to a temporary identity crisis, where you no longer know what drives you or what your goals are. But the purpose of this disorientation is to bring you back to your essence, not what you do, but who you are at your core. In terms of career, this transit is not ideal for launching new projects that require aggressive self-promotion or visible leadership. Your energy may be scattered or too inward-facing for consistent output. It is an excellent time for behind-the-scenes work, research, spiritual study, or sabbaticals. If you've been overworking, your body and spirit may now demand rest. Respect this pull. Pushing through it may lead to burnout. Trust that this retreat is not a step back, it's a recalibration. In the end, Ketu's transit through Purva Phalguni in your 12th house is a call to soften the grip on the world and open to the invisible areas. It's a phase of subtle loss, but also of immense spiritual wealth. You may lose interest in certain relationships, goals, or pleasures, but you gain solitude, clarity, and connection to the divine. This is not a time to chase or assert. It's a time to surrender, observe, and allow the veil to lift between what you thought life was and what it truly is. Libra individuals begin a karmically significant journey through the domain of desires, ambitions, social circles, gains, elder siblings, and long-term dreams, the 11th house, as Ketu enters Purva Phalguni Nakshatra. Purva Phalguni, a nakshatra governed by Venus, and residing in Leo, ruled by the Sun, is rich in themes of pleasure, celebration, social charisma, and artistic indulgence. Ketu, by contrast, brings withdrawal, contemplation, and a deep need to unravel worldly illusions. When these two conflicting vibrations meet in the 11th house, a space typically associated with expansion, extroversion, and fulfillment, an interesting paradox is born. For Libra individuals, who are naturally inclined toward diplomacy, balance, and beauty, this transit challenges the very ideals they often hold dear. The external world may lose its charm, and what once felt like success may begin to feel empty. The 11th house represents some of the most extroverted and socially integrated areas of life. It governs the company you keep, friends, professional networks, allies, as well as your hopes and future-oriented goals. When Ketu transits this house, it tends to fragment or distance you from these connections. You may begin to feel out of sync with your peer group or start questioning whether your social identity truly aligns with who you are becoming internally. This is particularly intensified by Purva Phalguni's influence, which usually thrives in company, enjoys the stage, and basks in the validation of others. With Ketu transiting this star, the very sources of popularity, social belonging, or applause may begin to feel hollow or forced. Ketu's detachment does not simply remove things, it exposes what's false. You may realize that some friendships or alliances were based more on image, convenience, or mutual benefit than true resonance. It's not uncommon under this transit to witness the gradual unraveling of a social circle. People may drift away, or you may intentionally begin to withdraw, no longer finding satisfaction in the same gatherings, events, or virtual spaces. It's not bitterness, it's an existential restlessness. The version of you that once craved popularity or recognition now begins to seek something deeper, quieter, and more authentic. There could be a strong desire to engage with smaller, more personal or intellectually aligned communities, or to spend more time in solitude. The 11th house also governs financial gains, especially from business ventures, entrepreneurship, or side income. Ketu, being a shadowy entity that dissolves attachment, can create a strange relationship with money during this period. For Libra individuals, who, with Venus as their ruler, often pursue financial and aesthetic harmony, this shift may feel disconcerting. It may seem like money is coming in, but not staying, or you may meet your financial goals only to realize they didn't satisfy you the way you had hoped. The discontent isn't logical, it's karmic. At the same time, unexpected karmic gains are also possible. Ketu doesn't always deny, it simply bypasses conventional pathways. You may receive support or rewards through channels that are mysterious, unseen, or spiritually aligned. An old contact might suddenly help you. A forgotten effort might bring unexpected recognition. But nothing about these gains will feel flashy. In fact, you may find yourself growing increasingly private about your achievements. Ketu co-rules your second house of Scorpio along with Mars, adding an important layer to this transit. The second house deals with speech, values, and family karma, while the 11th house is about collective values and societal roles. Together, this creates a karmic bridge between what you learn from your lineage and what you wish to contribute to society. There may be a reevaluation of values, not just in terms of money, but in your moral and spiritual code. What used to feel important, being seen, admired, included, may no longer carry the same meaning. You may experience silence where there was once chatter, or observe yourself speaking less, listening more. Your interactions might become more filtered, more cautious, because you're no longer interested in shallow exchanges. Your ambitions and goals may also undergo a profound metamorphosis. The 11th house governs not only current associations but future aspirations. With Ketu present, you may feel disoriented about where you're going. What you used to chase may no longer excite you. You might question the ladder you've been climbing, whether it was leaning on the right wall. This is particularly significant for Libra individuals, who often seek harmony and social cohesion. But Ketu pushes you into dissonance so that you can find a deeper, more aligned rhythm. It's a time when you may let go of certain dreams, not because you failed, but because they were never truly yours. Or perhaps they belong to a former version of you who no longer exists. Because Purva Falguni Nakshatra is deeply tied to romance, sensuality, indulgence, and joy, and now houses a planet that denies gratification, your experiences in social or romantic pleasure may also feel strangely disconnected. You might attend gatherings or celebrations and still feel like an outsider, not emotionally invested in what's happening. Some Libra individuals may even feel like they're acting through life, smiling, laughing, engaging, but internally removed. This subtle spiritual discontent can prompt many to explore esoteric subjects, astrology, healing arts, or even artistic expressions that are more solitary and reflective in nature. This is especially true when Venus, the nakshatra's ruler, is transiting your 8th or 12th houses, pushing you deeper into introspection. Romantic or platonic relationships that began during this transit may carry a fated or karmic signature. Often, such connections aren't meant to last forever but are intended to awaken or purge something dormant within you. There may be spiritual teachers disguised as friends, or soulmates who come not to complete your life, but to mirror a part of it that needs healing. On the other hand, relationships based solely on pleasure or ego might dissolve under the subtle pressure of Ketu, who allows no illusion to survive too long. The placement of Venus, the nakshatra lord, plays a significant role in how smoothly you navigate this transit. If Venus is dignified in your chart, placed in friendly signs, supported by benefics, you may experience this detachment as a graceful withdrawal, a quiet refinement of your values and desires. You may find spiritual depth even in solitude. But if Venus is afflicted, this could feel like a dull ache, where joy seems fleeting, and nothing quite satisfies. You may look for stimulation, but nothing sticks. This is not a punishment, it is a redirection. The Sun, ruler of Leo and dispositor of Ketu in this transit, also colors your experience. As the Sun governs ego, vitality, and recognition, its position in your birth chart determines how your sense of self reacts when societal mirrors no longer reflect what you expect. If the Sun is strong, you may find new confidence that's not dependent on external validation. If weak, you may temporarily feel lost, unsure of where you stand in the world. But either way, this phase strips away performance and invites authenticity. It isn't about disappearing, it's about reappearing as who you truly are. Toward the end of this transit, many Libra individuals may come out quieter, more grounded, and inwardly richer. You may have fewer friends, but more meaningful ones. You may want less but value more. You may no longer care about applause, yet feel deeply satisfied with your own private victories. This is the gift of Ketu, spiritual maturity, born from loss, born from release. Scorpio individuals enter a karmic period of transformation involving their career, public life, and worldly achievements, as Ketu begins its transit through Purva Falguni Nakshatra, as this transit is in their 10th house, the house that governs authority, reputation, work responsibilities, societal standing, and your outer purpose. Ketu, a shadow planet known for creating detachment, dissolution, and deep realizations, moves through the fiery and pleasure-loving nakshatra of Purva Falguni, which is ruled by Venus and resides within Leo, a sign ruled by the sun. This combination creates a profound inner conflict between the outer need for success and validation, and an inner calling to withdraw and seek something more meaningful, subtle, and timeless. The 10th house represents the peak of the chart, the zenith where your actions meet public recognition, where you strive to make your mark. Ketu's presence here begins to erode the conventional image of success. For Scorpio individuals, who are naturally intense, transformative, and driven by hidden motivations, this can be both confusing and liberating. You may begin to question why you do what you do. A career that once brought pride or excitement may now feel empty or misaligned. You could find yourself going through the motions, managing tasks, responding to responsibilities, but without a real sense of connection or fulfillment. Ketu's influence doesn't always cause visible disruption at first. In fact, it often appears subtle, like a whisper in your soul that tells you something is off, even if everything looks fine externally. This period may provoke a career identity crisis. The titles, accolades, or even the income you once strived for may no longer move you. Scorpio individuals, being co-ruled by Ketu and Mars, are already sensitive to hidden undercurrents. So, as this transit unfolds, you might find yourself retreating from the limelight, craving solitude, or distancing from environments that feel ego-driven, shallow, or overly competitive. This sense of withdrawal is amplified by the Purva Falguni Nakshatra, which is inherently sensual, pleasure-seeking, romantic, and artistic. It's a nakshatra that enjoys the stage, social engagements, and basking in beauty and affection. Yet Ketu, with its spiritual dispassion, sits here like a monk at a party, disinterested, unaffected, even bored by the outer spectacle. Therefore, if your profession is centered around performance, luxury, social media, entertainment, or any Venusian sphere, you may begin to feel estranged from your work. You might still participate in it, but with a growing detachment. This does not mean failure. It means the soul is signaling it's time to elevate or evolve the purpose behind your actions. Professionally, there could be moments of withdrawal or unexpected changes. Some Scorpio individuals may voluntarily step back from a leadership role, decline a promotion, or opt for sabbaticals or freelance work. Others may quietly begin building a new path behind the scenes, something more soulful, creative, or healing-oriented. Because Ketu doesn't operate through obvious force, you may find your career path subtly shifting, sometimes through disinterest, at other times through sudden realizations. Opportunities that once seemed ideal may now look unworthy of your energy. This is your intuition rising, and Ketu fine-tuning your karma. It's also important to acknowledge that this period might bring difficulties in workplace dynamics. The 10th house also rules authority figures, and Ketu's presence here can manifest as disillusionment with bosses or institutional systems. You may find certain protocols or hierarchies absurd or unworthy of respect. In extreme cases, conflicts with superiors may emerge, not due to ego clashes but because of ethical or spiritual misalignment. Scorpio individuals often have a sharp instinct for power plays, and during this transit, your sensitivity to false authority becomes heightened. This could compel you to move toward work environments that honor integrity, creativity, and quiet mastery over superficial recognition. Financially, this is a time to be cautious, not out of fear but mindfulness. If your income is tied to your career, the detachment that Ketu brings may translate into sporadic efforts or a decline in motivation, which can affect earnings. This isn't a loss-oriented transit in the typical sense. Rather, you may choose minimalism, deciding to earn less but live more freely, or seeking spiritual or artistic fulfillment instead of monetary compensation. If your natal Venus is strong and unafflicted, you may even experience success in creative or luxury-based fields, but the success won't feed your ego. Because Ketu doesn't allow inflation, it just passes through like a breeze. There is also a karmic flavor to your interactions with the outside world. The 10th house isn't just about career, it's about how society sees you. With Ketu here, your public image may become more ambiguous. You may be misunderstood, praised for things you didn't aim for, or criticized for things you no longer care about. There is a sense of invisibility in plain sight. For some Scorpio individuals, this can be deeply spiritual, freeing them from the burden of image management. For others, especially those who've built their identity on success, fame, or admiration, it may feel like the world is forgetting them. But this is Ketu's way of inviting you inward, asking you to anchor your worth in something indestructible, your soul's truth. The role of Venus, which rules Purva Falguni, becomes critical. Venus represents creativity, relationships, comfort, and values. As the nakshatra lord, Venus's placement in your natal chart will color the tone of this Ketu transit. If Venus is strong, this could be a time when you create beautiful, meaningful work behind the scenes or find a new love for subtle arts. If Venus is afflicted, there could be a deeper sense of dissatisfaction, not just in career, but in love and self-worth. You might question whether you've been chasing pleasure without purpose, or validation without value. The Sun, ruler of Leo, also influences this transit, and its position in your chart will either illuminate or complicate your experiences. Since the Sun symbolizes ego, leadership, and Dharma, Ketu's journey through Leo can cause the ego to shrink, not through defeat, but through disinterest. You may become less concerned with being right or leading others, and more interested in contributing meaningfully, even anonymously. Leadership might still be part of your life, but in a more organic, humble, and non-egoic way. It's less about position, more about service, as Ketu co-rules first house Scorpio, suggests that changes in career and public life are intimately connected to how you see yourself. You may start to peel away roles and labels you once wore with pride: entrepreneur, manager, consultant, performer. Not because they are wrong, but because you are ready to be more than your job description. The 10th house is also your Karma Bhava, the house of karma. Ketu's transit here may activate past life callings or open the door to your life's true work, not just a job, but a vocation. This could be something you're already doing but in a new form, or something entirely different, calling from the silence of your intuition. By the end of this transit in March 2026, many Scorpio individuals will have undergone a quiet but powerful realignment in their outer life. You may not have changed jobs or positions drastically, but the way you relate to your work, your goals, and your public life will have transformed. You may have discovered the futility of certain ambitions and stepped into work that feeds your spirit, not just your wallet. Or you may have learned to serve from the shadows, leading not through command, but through presence. Sagittarius individuals step into a deeply philosophical and spiritually charged period, as Ketu begins its transit through Purva Phalguni Nakshatra, occupying their 9th house, the domain of higher learning, belief systems, long-distance journeys, life philosophy, teachers, religious institutions, dharma, and divine grace. The nakshatra of Purva Phalguni, ruled by Venus, rests entirely within Leo, a sign ruled by the Sun. This zone is inherently about vision, purpose, and guidance from higher sources. But Ketu, the headless shadowy entity, arrives here not to expand one's beliefs, but to question them, to dissolve illusions related to dogma, and to nudge the soul into a more awakened spiritual path that is unbound by tradition or social narrative. The 9th house in a birth chart is often referred to as the house of fortune, and Sagittarius, being a naturally philosophical and dharmic sign, resonates powerfully with its energies. Ketu here does not bring immediate fortune in the worldly sense. Instead, it brings the kind of blessings that come after loss, detachment, or disillusionment. The initial phase of this transit may feel confusing or even destabilizing for some Sagittarius individuals. Your faith, long-standing ideologies, religious leanings, or worldview may be put to the test. Beliefs you once held with certainty could start to feel obsolete or hollow. The guiding principles you lived by may seem vague or ineffective, and this could trigger a deep internal churning. Ketu's presence here does not reject spirituality, but it detests blind belief. It begins to dissolve rigid frameworks, be they religious, moral, cultural, or philosophical, that no longer align with the deeper truth of your soul. Sagittarius, being a fire sign ruled by Jupiter, is typically associated with teaching, preaching, travel, and visionary exploration. But when Ketu transits your 9th house, your outer gurus may fade, your institutions may disappoint, and the books may start to feel repetitive. What this transit truly wants from you is to become your own teacher, to stop outsourcing divine understanding and to start trusting your inner compass. Interestingly, Purva Phalguni, the nakshatra involved in this transit, is often associated with comfort, luxury, joy, artistic beauty, and a celebration of life's pleasures. It revels in relationships, romance, art, and even the sensual side of living. Yet Ketu, known for its ascetic nature, does not integrate easily with these themes. This creates a polarity of experiences. You may find yourself pulling away from enjoyable things or social rituals that once brought pleasure. Ceremonial religion may feel performative. Structured education could feel dry. Even cultural traditions that once gave you pride may now appear outdated. This is not cynicism, it's evolution. Ketu strips the glamour from what once looked sacred and forces you to seek divinity in silence, simplicity, or even isolation. You may find yourself retreating from the collective norms of your community or religious upbringing. The 9th house also governs one's relationship with the father, gurus, mentors, or elders, and during this transit, a rift may emerge in those dynamics. For some Sagittarius individuals, the father figure may become absent, whether physically or emotionally, or you may simply begin to see their teachings in a new, more critical light. Guru-like figures could lose their shine, or their hypocrisy may become visible. Again, this does not always bring dramatic fallouts. It is more often in distancing, where respect remains, but reliance dissolves. One key area influenced by the ninth house is travel, especially long-distance or international travel. With Ketu transiting here, there may be a sense of detachment or loss associated with such experiences. You may travel for spiritual purposes, or you may long for a journey but find it blocked, delayed, or emotionally unfulfilling. Alternatively, you might embark on a trip that radically alters your beliefs or strips away your illusions about other cultures, philosophies, or the broader world. For many, there may be a deep pull toward pilgrimage or retreats, but even there, you may find more value in solitude than the rituals being offered. The Sun, as the ruler of Leo and dispositor of Ketu during this time, plays a significant role in how this transit manifests. The Sun governs ego, confidence, and authority, and its position in your chart determines whether this internal unraveling of belief structures will feel empowering or disorienting. If your Sun is well placed, you may experience this transit as a spiritual maturity, an inner sovereignty that replaces dependence on outer validation. But if the Sun is weak or afflicted, there may be a temporary identity crisis, a sense that the foundation of your worldview is crumbling. The result is eventually the same, a rebirth of your Dharma. Venus, the ruler of Purva Falguni, also influences the quality of this experience. Venus governs enjoyment, relationships, creativity, and values. If Venus is strong in your natal chart, you may find your spiritual path shifting toward more creative or gentle expressions, art therapy, music, or tantra, for instance. But if Venus is afflicted, there may be a tug-of-war between the pleasures of the material world and the spiritual detachment that Ketu demands. You might feel torn between pursuing comfort and renouncing it. This is part of the karmic push and pull. Ketu teaches not by denying beauty, but by revealing where attachment to beauty has replaced your search for truth. Another dimension of this transit stems from the fact that Ketu co-rules the 12th house, Scorpio, for Sagittarius individuals. This creates a strong connection between the 9th and 12th houses, both of which are spiritual, non-material, and concerned with higher wisdom. The 12th house relates to moksha, loss, isolation, dreams, sleep, the unconscious, and foreign places. This link suggests that many Sagittarius individuals may begin to explore mysticism, astrology, meditation, philosophy, or subtle healing arts during this time. You may become very curious about foreign places, cultures, and people. These aren't just casual interests. They may feel familiar, like something your soul already knows. There may also be a pull toward service, particularly in faraway places. Yet even here, Ketu keeps you away from spotlight or self-congratulatory motives. You may serve quietly, anonymously, and this will bring you deeper joy than public recognition ever did. Some Sagittarius individuals may even consider taking time off from worldly obligations for a sabbatical, studies, or research purposes, provided their dasha periods align with this inward movement. Ketu's influence in the 9th house also brings up issues related to truth versus illusion in legal, academic, or philosophical matters. If you are involved in litigation, higher studies, publishing, or teaching, this period may expose gaps, inconsistencies, or falsehoods, either in your own understanding or within the system itself. Be prepared for sudden changes in educational pursuits. You may drop out, change your area of study, or pursue an unconventional or alternative path altogether. The system may no longer feel like it represents truth. This too is Ketu pulling you out of the prescribed and into the authentic. Capricorn individuals step into a period of spiritual combination and emotional metamorphosis, as Ketu enters the Purva Falguni Nakshatra. As this enigmatic shadow planet transits their 8th house, the domain of transformation, secrets, occult sciences, hidden fears, joint resources, sudden losses or gains, intimacy, and deep psychological evolution. This is not a surface-level transit. It cuts deep into the subconscious layers, peeling back the illusions that surround control, attachment, and the mysteries of life and death itself. The nakshatra of Purva Falguni, ruled by Venus and situated entirely in Leo, adds an element of sensuality, pleasure, and indulgence to the terrain. But Ketu, a renunciate by nature, is inherently incompatible with such Venusian qualities. The result is an inner struggle between the desire to hold on to emotional or material comfort and the karmic necessity to detach, evolve, and transcend. For Capricorn individuals, ruled by Saturn, a planet that craves structure, discipline, and long-term security, the 8th house is already an uncomfortable area. It asks for surrender and trust in the unknown, which clashes with Capricorn's practical, goal-oriented mindset. Now, with Ketu activating this house through the lens of Purva Falguni, you may begin to feel a strange combination of withdrawal from pleasure and yet inner craving for depth. This can create emotional turbulence, as your soul seeks to shed layers of dependence on relationships, finances, control, or even your own identity, while your mind may resist the process. One of the first manifestations of this transit may be emotional detachment in intimate relationships. The 8th house governs sexuality and deep bonding, and Purva Falguni is a nakshatra often associated with romantic pleasure, lovemaking, and the joys of physical union. But Ketu brings detachment and disinterest. For many Capricorn individuals, this could translate into feeling disconnected from their partner, especially on an emotional or sexual level. If the relationship lacks spiritual or psychological depth, it may feel hollow. You might find yourself questioning whether your physical relationships are actually feeding your soul, or merely providing temporary escape. This can cause feelings of guilt or confusion, especially if you still care for your partner but can't understand the growing emotional void. In some cases, this may lead to withdrawal, separation, or reevaluation of long-term relationships, particularly if other dasha periods or aspects in your chart are supportive of such transitions. Yet, the goal here is not to destroy relationships but to transform them, by removing expectations, illusions, or attachments that are rooted in ego or sensual gratification. You may be pushed to explore emotional transparency, even vulnerability, and create deeper bonds based not on pleasure, but on trust, shared transformation, and spiritual growth. On a psychological level, this transit can bring buried traumas, fears, or karmic wounds to the surface. The 8th house is the unconscious mind, the hidden vault of experiences and patterns from past lives or earlier phases of this life. With Ketu here, you may begin to recall forgotten pain, dreams, or symbols that carry powerful emotional meaning. This can be disturbing, but also liberating. Therapy or introspective practices like meditation or journaling can be extremely helpful during this time. You are not going crazy, you are purging karmic toxins, and Ketu is simply holding up a mirror to what must be faced in order to evolve. This house also governs shared finances, inheritances, taxes, insurance, and all forms of money that come through others. Ketu's influence here can create uncertainty or confusion in these areas. You might face sudden changes in joint ventures, or there could be delays in receiving financial support. It is also possible that some Capricorn individuals may lose interest in chasing wealth through partnerships, or may give up claims to shared property in exchange for peace. Ketu doesn't always create external loss, but it often removes your emotional attachment to what you thought you needed. You may suddenly realize that money, especially money earned through marriage, inheritance, or secret channels, doesn't bring fulfillment. In certain cases, Ketu in the 8th can bring sudden gains as well, especially when the soul has already detached from desire. Spiritual wealth, esoteric knowledge, and insights into astrology, tantra, or occult sciences may suddenly blossom. This is a highly auspicious time to dive into mystical studies, especially because Capricorn, though grounded, has a strong internal capacity for serious discipline and long-term focus. Ketu favors those who are not interested in popularity or recognition but seek knowledge for its own sake. Therefore, studying astrology, psychology, metaphysics, or even healing can bring powerful realizations and even career expansion in the long run. The nakshatra Purva Falguni, known for its love of luxury, beauty, and ease, clashes with Ketu's spiritual austerity. You may begin to reject certain comforts or pleasures you once indulged in. Parties, entertainment, romantic escapades, or even the pursuit of beauty may start to feel meaningless or excessive. You may go through a phase of minimalism, not because of deprivation, but due to a shift in values. Venus, the ruler of this nakshatra, and its condition in your birth chart, will significantly affect how this plays out. If Venus is strong, you may be able to blend sensual pleasure with spiritual growth. You may find beauty in silence, pleasure in solitude, and grace in minimalism. But if Venus is weak or afflicted, you might struggle with loneliness, dissatisfaction in love, or the feeling that you are undeserving of happiness. The key is to understand that Ketu is not punishing you. It is preparing you to receive a higher, subtler form of joy that cannot be bought or possessed. The Sun, as ruler of Leo, becomes the dispositor of Ketu in this transit. Its placement and dignity in your natal chart influence whether this transit empowers you or challenges you. A strong Sun may help you hold your confidence and face the emotional storms with clarity and resolve. A weak Sun may bring issues related to self-worth, ego, or fatherly karma into play, forcing you to confront where your sense of identity is still externally anchored. As Ketu co-rules 11th house with Mars, there is an important link between this 8th house transit and your social identity, ambitions, and friendships. You may feel detached from your friend groups or networks, especially if those circles are built on shallow connections or material goals. Spiritual communities or like-minded seekers may become more appealing. You might even find yourself spending more time alone, not because of isolation, but because your soul craves purity and silence. By the end of this transit, in March 2026, many Capricorn individuals may feel transformed at a soul level. You may come out of this period wiser, lighter, and more in tune with your spiritual path, even if the process has felt intense or isolating. You may no longer chase validation through material success or sexual gratification, but instead seek connection through honesty, depth, and shared evolution. Ketu in the 8th, especially in a sensual nakshatra like Purva Falguni, is a contradiction designed to awaken you. It removes superficial pleasure so that you can feel joy that's rooted in soul awareness. It cuts attachments to false security so that you can discover unshakable inner strength. Aquarius individuals step into a period in their karmic and relational development, as Ketu begins its journey through Purva Falguni Nakshatra in Leo. The 7th house, occupied by Ketu, governs significant partnerships, marriage, committed romantic relationships, business contracts, open enemies, and all one-to-one interactions. For Aquarius, an inherently detached and future-oriented sign ruled by Saturn and co-ruled by Rahu, this transit carries intense lessons in emotional connection, mutual commitment, and how deeply one engages with others. Ketu, being a headless entity, represents separation, detachment, past life karmas, and spiritual disinterest in the material plane. When placed in the 7th house, the planet naturally brings a sense of withdrawal or disillusionment in marriage or close partnerships. Yet this disconnection is not always literal or external. Many Aquarius individuals may begin to feel mentally or emotionally distant from their spouse or partner, even if they remain physically present. Relationships may suddenly feel hollow, performative, or lacking depth. You may begin to question the purpose and authenticity of your commitments, whether romantic or business-related. This does not imply failure, but rather a karmic call to reevaluate the nature of your connections, why they were formed, what role they are serving, and what your soul still needs to learn through them. The nakshatra of Purva Falguni, ruled by Venus, represents enjoyment, love, sensuality, relaxation, romance, and the aesthetics of pleasure. Its presence in Leo, a royal, ego-driven fire sign ruled by the sun, adds layers of pride, glamour, and self-expression. This nakshatra is associated with lovemaking, pleasure, and indulgence. Yet with Ketu transiting here, all those qualities are being challenged, stripped down, or spiritualized. Ketu does not find satisfaction in pleasure for pleasure's sake. It pushes you to realize that sensual satisfaction, external beauty, or validation through relationships is ultimately transient. This makes the romantic landscape especially fragile during this time. Aquarius individuals may lose interest in physical intimacy or feel disconnected in love, often for reasons they cannot explain. Ketu's influence tends to blur the lines of logic, making it hard to rationalize your emotional distance. You may crave solitude, even when in company. You might long for freedom or independence within a relationship, or begin to romanticize the idea of being on your own. For those already struggling with relational issues, this transit can bring matters to the forefront, leading to emotional detachment, conflict avoidance, or even separation. This process is not about punishing you. It's about awakening your awareness to where you've been overly dependent on a partner or where you've ignored deeper truths within the relationship. For some Aquarius individuals, especially those on a spiritual path, this transit may mark a turn towards celibacy or solitude, as they begin to see partnership not just as an emotional or legal union, but as a karmic contract meant to serve a soul lesson. Others may seek more platonic or intellectually stimulating bonds, abandoning the superficiality of romantic play for something more meaningful, even if that path leads inward rather than toward another person. Importantly, this transit doesn't only affect personal relationships, it extends to business and professional alliances as well. You may find yourself growing uncomfortable in collaborations where trust, fairness, or mutual respect is lacking. Partnerships that were formed out of convenience or material gain may now start to feel hollow or draining. Ketu will quietly, but firmly, push you to either purify the terms of the alliance or walk away from it. This can include contractual obligations, client relationships, or any one-to-one dynamic where you feel your authenticity is being compromised. Since Ketu co-rules your 10th house along with Mars, and is now transiting the 7th house, there is a strong tie between your professional life and your relationships during this period. This can manifest in two ways. Either your career begins to influence your partnerships, causing strain, distance, or imbalance, or your relationships begin to impact your public image, authority, and ambitions. You may lose interest in previously established social contracts or career partnerships, especially if they lack integrity or purpose. It can also point to a subtle shift in your career direction, driven by internal dissatisfaction with the people you're surrounded by or the dynamics you're operating within. The Sun, as the ruler of Leo and thus the dispositor of Ketu in this transit, holds important importance. Where the Sun is placed in your natal chart will shape the quality and tone of this transit. If the Sun is strong, exalted, or well aspect, you may experience this Ketu transit as a liberation from unhealthy relationship patterns, regaining personal authority and clarity in your dealings with others. But if the sun is weak or afflicted, you may struggle with self-esteem, ego battles in relationships, or a tendency to lose yourself in others. Similarly, Venus, as the nakshatra lord, governs themes of love, beauty, value, and desire. Its position in your chart adds another layer of nuance to how this period unfolds. If Venus is strong, you may be able to maintain grace and peace even while detaching emotionally. You may seek higher expressions of love, devotional, artistic, or spiritual forms of connection rather than physical or material ones. But if Venus is under strain, there could be tension around money, pleasure, or unmet expectations, especially if these themes are deeply embedded in your partnerships. Ketu's transits are often linked to past life karma, and in the 7th house, this can indicate that your current relationship, or a new one that emerges, may feel fated, mysterious, or strangely familiar. You may be working through unresolved issues that began in other lifetimes. This is why relationships during Ketu's transit often bring about karmic purging, through confusion, loss, or unmet expectations. You are not meant to escape these relationships, but to see through them, to understand what they're revealing about your soul's deeper needs. This transit urges Aquarius individuals to disentangle love from attachment, and commitment from control. It invites you to remain committed, not out of fear or obligation, but from a place of inner knowing. For those who are single, this can be a time of emotional ambiguity, where you may crave partnership, but simultaneously reject opportunities for connection. There could be a pattern of attracting unavailable or distant individuals, or you may feel like no relationship is able to match your ideals. This is Ketu's way of asking you to fall in love with your own company first, to complete emotional cycles before entering a new union. On a more mundane level, this period may also bring legal concerns, delays in marital matters, or confusion around business contracts. Any agreements made during this time must be read carefully and revisited with a clear head. Avoid rushing into deals, commitments, or alliances out of impulse. Let clarity unfold gradually, as Ketu favors slowness, silence, and spiritual discernment. As Ketu continues its transit through Purva Phalguni until March 29, 2026, Aquarius individuals may experience profound emotional revelations that redefine what it means to connect, share, and commit. What begins as detachment will end as wisdom, and what feels like loss now will make space for soul-aligned relationships later. This is not a period of destruction, it is a sacred pause, an edit to your relationship story, allowing only what truly serves your growth to remain. Pisces individuals will witness a transformation of themes associated with the 6th house, a domain that governs everyday work, service, debts, health issues, conflicts, enemies, competition, legal matters, and routines, as Ketu begins its transit through Purva Phalguni Nakshatra in Leo. For Pisces individuals, a sign naturally ruled by Jupiter, this is a time when illusions around comfort, duty, and confrontation begin to fade. Ketu, being a headless and detached entity, brings about a phase of karmic correction, often by way of disinterest, withdrawal, or strange detachment toward the very issues the 6th house deals with. Yet this is not a passive period. On the contrary, this transit marks an important turning point in how Pisces individuals approach responsibility, healing, discipline, and karmic debts, especially those tied to past lives and subconscious habits. The Purva Phalguni Nakshatra, governed by Venus and located in the Leo sign ruled by the Sun, is typically associated with pleasure, love, relaxation, and indulgence. Its energy is bright, youthful, and expressive. It wants enjoyment and ease. Ketu's presence in this nakshatra creates a stark contrast. Ketu is a spiritualist, a renunciate, indifferent to worldly pleasures and driven by a desire for liberation. When placed in such a sensual nakshatra within the 6th house of hard work and real-life struggle, it starts to disrupt comfort-seeking behavior and demands purification in how one deals with daily life challenges. Pisces, as a water sign with a dreamy, compassionate disposition, often tends to avoid conflict or the rough edges of life. The 6th house is where one is forced to engage with difficulties head-on. And now, with Ketu transiting here, your relationship with discomfort will change. You may begin to feel disillusioned by your existing work routines, or disconnected from colleagues and the service environment you're part of. The work you once felt passionate about might begin to feel repetitive or meaningless, especially if it doesn't align with your ideals or spiritual path. This may cause a drift in professional motivation, but the purpose is not to make you quit. It is to restructure your relationship with service, to make your work feel more purposeful, not merely habitual. This is an ideal time to become more introspective about how and why you serve others. Ketu in the 6th pushes Pisces individuals to stop pleasing others out of guilt or obligation and begin understanding the spiritual significance of boundaries. You may feel naturally drawn to alternative healing systems, holistic health practices, or spiritual forms of service, but disenchanted with traditional or highly commercialized work environments. Jobs that feel too materialistic, overly bureaucratic, or soulless may weigh heavily on your spirit now, urging a change in lifestyle, or even a change in profession over the coming months. One of the most important aspects of this transit is its influence on health. The sixth house is the natural seat of disease, healing, and bodily imbalance. Ketu here can bring vague, hard-to-diagnose health issues, especially those related to stress, digestion, or psychosomatic imbalances. Because Purva Falguni is connected to indulgence and relaxation, overconsumption of comfort foods, laziness, or neglecting bodily discipline could become problematic. Ketu's goal is not to destroy the body but to highlight where your physical habits are out of sync with your spiritual needs. Many Pisces individuals may now become more interested in detoxing, fasting, or subtle healing techniques, where the mind-body connection is prioritized. There could be a natural withdrawal from medication-heavy treatments and a gravitation toward energetic or intuitive healing. Another dimension of the sixth house is its connection with conflict and enemies, including both external rivals and internal battles. Ketu's transit here may make you more conflict avoidant than usual, or you may feel tired of fights that once triggered you easily. This can be both a blessing and a challenge. On one hand, you may find it easier to forgive, let go, and detach from petty disagreements or office politics. But on the other hand, there may be situations where confrontation is necessary, and your avoidance might come at a cost. Ketu in the sixth often dissolves the drive to compete or win, but in the right environment, it can help you transcend ego-based competition and focus instead on spiritual discipline and inner growth. This is a time to choose your battles wisely, and remember that some of them are internal, not external. The sixth house also rules debts, legal issues, and karmic burdens. Ketu here can trigger sudden clarity or disruption in matters of loans, repayments, or obligations. You may feel like walking away from a financial commitment, or realizing that certain debts, emotional or monetary, are no longer worth the energy they demand. Sometimes, Ketu acts in a hidden way, helping you release ancestral or spiritual debts by resolving karmic entanglements, even if you are not consciously aware of them. If you find yourself drawn towards service without recognition, spiritual retreats, or isolation, take it as a sign that your soul is undergoing purification through the sixth house channel. Ketu, being the co-ruler of your ninth house along with Mars, establishes a significant link during this transit between daily duty and higher wisdom. This means your belief systems, spiritual teachers, long-distance travel, or religious philosophies will indirectly influence how you deal with everyday struggles. Ketu is not meant to make life easier, it makes it meaningful by cutting the non-essentials. Your soul will now start understanding that even mundane routines can be sacred if infused with awareness and detachment. The Sun, as the ruler of Leo and thus the dispositor of Ketu, plays an important role here. Where the Sun sits in your natal chart will determine how powerfully you handle this Ketu phase. A well-placed Sun can provide clarity, dignity, and the willpower to engage in service without feeling drained or victimized. An afflicted or weak Sun may create ego issues or fatigue, where you feel burdened by life's demands or unsure about your purpose. You may also feel like your efforts are not being recognized, but again, that is Ketu's design, to liberate you from seeking validation through service. The role of Venus, the nakshatra ruler, is equally critical. Its condition in your birth chart will modify how you experience detachment. If Venus is strong, you may find a sense of beauty and grace even in simplicity. You might discover artistic or creative forms of healing or bring an aesthetic sense to your work life. But if Venus is challenged, you may feel like you're not enjoying life anymore, as sensual pleasures lose their charm and daily responsibilities feel overwhelming. This is again a call for realignment, not to avoid pleasure, but to seek joy in sustainable, soulful ways rather than overindulgence or laziness. Throughout this transit, which continues until March 29th, 2026, Pisces individuals will be called to examine their relationship with work, health, and selfless service. This is a test of maturity and internal strength, not about achievement, but about integrity. You may not win recognition during this time, but you'll likely clear major karmic burdens, especially those tied to powerlessness, toxic obligation, or escapism. And though Ketu may not give you what you want, it will certainly guide you toward what your soul truly needs. By the end of this transit, you may find that you no longer resist hardship the way you used to. You may become quieter, steadier, more efficient, not out of pressure, but from wisdom. As we conclude this episode, please remember that these insights are based on sidereal or Vedic astrology, which accounts for the approximately 24-degree difference from the tropical zodiac. Individual predictions may vary, as every birth chart is unique. The influence of dasha periods and natal planetary placements can shape transits differently, both positively and negatively. It's essential to consider your own birth chart when applying these general predictions to your personal circumstances. If you'd like personalized predictions or have questions about your astrological chart, feel free to reach out to us. Stay tuned for more astrological updates. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel for more insightful astrology content. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to sharing more astrological wisdom with you in the future. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep shining bright.